to bring me back to you.
Maulana ya Maulana, ya Sami' du'ana. 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 I know life won't last forever. Lord, I raise my hands to you. Rabbi, keep me firm on this path. Pray you bring me right to you. You forgive all those who seek you. Who do I call if it's not you? Pray one day I'll meet you, Rabbi. Won't you bring me back to you? Maulana ya Maulana, ya Sami' du'ana. 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 Maulana ya Maulana, ya Sami' du'ana.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Can I be heard?
Yes, clear.
Okay. Shall we start now?
Yes, clear.
All right. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very
Waalaikumsalam
good to
warahmatullahi
all of you. My name is Iqomuddien Muhammad, and I'll be the master of ceremony, also the moderator for today's event. It is my greatest pleasure to welcome all of you here, and I would like to say thank you very much for joining us in our special event, the international webinar with the topics of global Islamic finance after COVID-19 pandemic. Now, before we start our special event for today, allow me to read today's agendas. The first one is opening, and second is the first sessions with our guest speaker, Professor Humayon, and it'll be continued with the next sessions, the second sessions with Professor Dr. Murniati Mukhlisin as the Rector of Tazkia Islamic University College. And after that, questions and answer sessions. And last but not least, closing with further sessions. So those are the agendas for today's event. Just a little bit housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions, please don't be hesitate. Just type it down in the comment box below, or maybe you can unmute your mic so you can give your questions directly to the speaker in the questions and answer sessions, okay? And I feel like I need to remind you as well about the questionnaires list and also the attendance list, okay? Please don't forget to fill the attendance list through the link that will be sent in the end, by the end of this event, okay? I guess that's it. Ladies and gentlemen, let us begin our special event for today, the international webinar, with the topics of Global Islamic Finance After COVID-19 Pandemic by reciting Basmalah together. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
All right, then. We're about to move on to the next sessions, the first sessions of our discussions, the international webinar with the topics of global Islamic finance after COVID-19 pandemic. But before that, I would like to introduce you. It is my pleasure to introduce all of you to our guest speaker, Professor Humayon. So Professor Humayon is Director General of Cambridge Institute of Islamic Finance, a research institute specializing in the financial sectors of the countries with significant proportions of Islamic banking and finance. Prior to joining Cambridge IIF, he served as Director General of Islamic Research and Training Institute of Islamic Development Bank. He is also chairman of the powerful Cambridge Advis Group of companies, which own Advis Consulting and Cambridge IFA, two influential financial intelligence consultancy companies. He is a Sharia advisor, Islamic economist, and advocate for Islamic banking and finance. He has served as a member of the Sharia Board of Arabesque Asset Management, Abu Dhabi Commercial Bank, Omak Holding, Hong Leong Islamic Bank, Malaysia, Hong Leong MSIG Takaful, Alliance Global Investors Luxembourg, and UMIC Securities. He served as Managing Director at Deutsche Bank and CEO of its Islamic Finance subsidiary, and has also been a visiting professor for Islamic finance for university in the United Kingdom, Malaysia, and the Middle East. In the Islamic banking and finance industry, academia and publishing, he described himself as connected with royal and industrial families and Islamic financial institutions around the world. His website described him as one of the most influential personalities in Islamic banking and finance. All right, without any further delay, I would like to call upon Professor Humayon. Assalamu alaikum, Professor.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Good afternoon, Professor. How are you doing now?
I'm okay, thank you very much. Right now I'm in Islamabad and I am in my home. And during this talk, there might be some noise, some birds chirping or some kind of traffic noise. You will have to bear with me.
That wouldn't be a problem, inshallah. All right, Professor, you have 30 minutes of your time. If you'd like to share something maybe about global Islam, maybe more specifically about global Islamic finance after COVID-19 pandemic, please, time is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidil Anbiya'i wal Mursaleen wa ala alihi wa ahlihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. First of all, I would like to thank Tazkia University College for inviting me to speak on this topic, which is of immense importance, not only to Islamic banking and finance, but for the wider world as well. The difficult times we are passing through, i.e. COVID-19 affected time, this is going to change our lives irreversibly, our social lives, our family lives, our individual lives. And of course, this is going to change the institutions in which we work. And given that I have only 30 minutes, I would like to share very briefly the historical perspective of the external shocks. And I would like to start with the Great Depression of the 1930s. It was definitely a very significant external shock to the economies of the world and of course the global economy of that time, following which a lot of changes took place in the world. One significant change was a number of well-established business families went out of the business and they were replaced by a new generation of families and businesses and corporates which dominated the world afterwards. The second external shock, which was even bigger than the Great Depression shock, was the World War II. Actually, after the World War II, a number of new institutions emerged which changed our lives in a very radical way. The Bretton Woods institutions, i.e. the IMF and the World Bank, they were actually set up after the World War II to restructure the global economy. And all of us, we know that these institutions are playing very significant roles in the lives of the nations. And of course, through this national perspective, they have affected and they continue to affect the lives of the institutions and individuals as well. That was the time when even NATO was set up. In 1944, IMF and World Bank were set up, and towards the end of that decade, 1948-49, NATO was set up as well. Then we had another important external shock, which was the oil shock of 1970s. And this shock is important and is of significance to Islamic banking and finance, because many would argue that Islamic banking and finance actually emerged out of that external shock, i.e. the oil shock of the 1970s. Although before the 1970s, some Islamic financial institutions were set up, but in 1975, when the Islamic Development Bank was set up as a multilateral institution, and of course, some commercial institutions like Dubai Islamic Bank in 1975 was set up. 1977, 1979, a number of Islamic banks were set up in different parts of the world. So for the Islamic world, I would say that the external shock of the 1970s, i.e. the oil shock, was very important, after which a lot of new developments took place. Following that, we have been facing some minor external shocks. The latest one before the COVID-19 was the great financial crisis of 2008-2009, which affected the global financial markets in a significant way. And of course, Islamic banking and finance was not an exception. There was a definite change in the way we would do Islamic banking and finance following the great financial crisis of 2008-2009. Then towards the end of the second decade of this century, we experienced something which is very unique in its nature. This is a truly global external shock. It has affected not just one sector. It hasn't affected just banks or other financial institutions. It has affected the whole society, global society. It has affected businesses, and within businesses, it has affected manufacturing sectors, services sectors, health sector, you name anything. We have been hit by this tsunami in a very comprehensive way, and no one can claim to have remained unaffected by this. And of course, Islamic banks and financial institutions, they are facing the brunt like any other financial institution in the world. Having said that, this time, at least up to now the banking and finance sector has not been very significantly affected by the ongoing crisis. Of course, there are negative effects of this everywhere, and banking and finance cannot say that, oh, we are completely separate from this one. When I say that banks and financial institutions have not been affected significantly so far by the pandemic, I refer to the profitability figures of banks and financial institutions, including Islamic banks and financial institutions. Last year, which was the peak year of the crisis, at the end of the year, a lot of Islamic banks, they actually reported increase in their profits. And in some cases, the profits were very significant. This year, I have been speaking to a number of the CEOs of Islamic banks and financial institutions. Of course, they are nervous. Like myself, I am in Islamic banking and finance. And as a business person, I am nervous. And there is an effect, negative effect on my business. But we are surviving. Okay. I was talking to one friend of mine who runs a bank in United Kingdom, and he told me that last year during the lockdown, they managed to meet all their targets. And this year, we are towards the end of the first half of the year. Again, he said that although the restrictions are in place, but we have managed to perform as per expectations of our shareholders. Right? So this is the story of banks and financial institutions in general. However, when we look at the economy as a whole, right, there are some sectors which are affected very badly. Airlines industry, for example, the giants like Emirates Airlines, Singapore Airlines, British Airways, and you must have got the news of Garuda defaulting on the payments of one of the sukuk. Okay. So the real sector of the global economy, it is definitely very badly affected by the pandemic. And it's not only the airlines. I've just given you one example. The wider hospitality sector, hotels, for example, if no one is traveling, if no one is allowed to travel, how these hotels are going to operate. So hotels industry is in a big problem. And when they open up, I believe that the exact magnitude of the problem would be known to us. Similarly, from London, I can give you example of the shared offices industry. Just before the crisis, in the city of London, about 20 billion worth of new investment was made into the shared office facilities. All those buildings, these tall buildings, they are empty. They do not have any business. But on top of that, maintaining those buildings, okay, it has become an issue. Okay. Now, if I go to the food industry, first half of the crisis, food industry was actually quite okay. Okay, hotels, restaurants, cafes, they managed to maintain, not only maintain, but actually they got more business from their takeaway businesses. However, in the United Kingdom, now that we are towards the end of the lockdown, cafes and restaurants have opened up. But the owners, they're very nervous because they have to follow the SOPs. If in one restaurant, the full capacity was 100 individuals, 100 people, now because of the SOPs, they can take only half of the capacity, 50 individuals. And of course, this has profit implications for these businesses. Some of the very well-established businesses like Debenhams. Debenhams was a high street name in the United Kingdom. It has gone out of the business. It has gone bankrupt. I have seen with my eyes Debenhams closing down. Okay, and I have seen people crying. Some people, they had been working for Debenhams for last 20 years, 25 years. And when I saw them, that was their last day at work. Okay, so this is the picture. It's a very gloomy picture of the real sector of the economy. And banks and financial institutions, they cannot remain completely separate from this one. the governments, especially in the Western side of the world, in the OECD countries, in Europe, America, and other developed countries, they have pumped a lot of money into the system. And because this money has been pumped into the system through banks, banks have been beneficiaries. Okay. However, when they start, when they resume their real business with the market players, banks would be in very difficult situations as well. And Islamic banks, they would not be an exception. Now, the question is, what would be the life like in Islamic banking and finance post-COVID? My simplest answer to this is that Islamic banks and financial institutions would not be very different from their conventional counterparts. My hunch is that the financial sector would adjust itself very quickly. We may not find a lot of difficulties in the financial sector, including in Islamic banking and finance. But that should not be taken as a good news. Okay. I think what is the intent of our today's webinar is to see what role Islamic banking and finance can play in the post-COVID era to make itself more effective and more relevant to the lives of the people it has been attempting to serve. Now, people like me, we are inside the industry. We know that the global Islamic financial services industry has prospered and grown significantly. There are some estimates that by the end of this year, the industry would be touching the size of $3 trillion US. Okay, and the growth prospects are good as well. So the industry has behaved almost in the same way as conventional banking and finance industry. And there has been some criticism of this one as well. If Islamic banking was supposed to behave like conventional banking, some critics would say, what was the point of introducing this new way of doing banking and finance? The advocates, people like me, we would say that this is a Sharia compliant version of what is impermissible otherwise. Hence, there is a value addition. But the critics would say that, what is the economic value proposition? The whole Islamic banking and finance industry emerged out of social justice concerns. Now, in the 1950s and 60s and even 70s, the scholars would say that Islamic banking and finance model would be more just, it would be more inclusive, and it would serve the people in a lot better way as compared to the interest-based banks and financial institutions. It hasn't happened. Okay. It hasn't happened in the sense that Islamic banks and financial institutions have served the industry as much as conventional banks and financial institutions, but it has so far failed to bring the new value addition. It's not a new model. It is a Sharia compliant version of the existing model. Okay. So I think COVID-19 may be relevant in the context of reforming Islamic banking and finance to make it more social, to make it more socially responsible. And I must say that in the last 18 months, there is a huge emphasis on recognizing the role of Islamic social finance during this crisis and, of course, afterwards as well. So in the post-COVID-19 era, Islamic social finance globally would have to play a bigger role. Now, as I mentioned, the global size of the Islamic financial services industry, the mainstream Islamic financial services industry, is about $3 trillion US. Now, there is a need to come up with new institutions which would be consistent with the new socio-economic reality in the world. Islamic banks and financial institutions, they have followed a corporate model, which is good. You know, whatever they have been doing there, I would not like to criticize because I have been part of this movement. However, now there is a need to come up with a new model of Islamic finance, which should be based on the principles of Islamic social finance. When we talk about Islamic social finance, we must keep in mind an institutional framework. When we talk about Islamic banks, this banking institution is in the center of the whole thing. Okay. In Islamic social finance, the institution which must be in the middle of everything is the institution of Waqf. And this is the time for the stakeholders in Islamic banking and finance to start thinking about creating Islamic social finance Waqf or social finance Waqfs, SFWs. And there should be a very comprehensive framework around them. We already, Indonesia is playing a lead role. We already have this framework, which is called the Core Principles for Effective Management and Supervision of Awqaf, okay, which was developed with the help of Islamic Development Bank. And this was actually inaugurated in Indonesia. So that document is there. There is a need to work on it and make it more comprehensive. Right now, we have 4 or 5 infrastructure bodies for Islamic banking and finance. We have Accounting and Auditing Organization for Islamic Financial Institutions. We have IFSP, we have IIFM, and we have the likes of IRA, Islamic International Rating Agencies, or some people would say the 5th one is International Islamic Liquidity Management Corporation as well. So these 4 or 5 infrastructure bodies are there. There is a need to come up with a similar infrastructure body, global one, for promoting Awqaf all over the world. We have some framework, like within Islamic Development Bank, we have Awqaf Properties Investment Fund, APIF or APIF. Okay. This is a fund within the Islamic Development Bank group. But I believe that there is a need to come up with a global body which should be completely independent of existing infrastructure bodies. Okay, like we can have global Waqf organization or a global Waqf development board, something like this one. And I think in this respect, Indonesia can play a very important role. Indonesian government has been serious about promoting Islamic banking and finance in the country and taking it to the next level. KNEKS, for example, which was set up by the President, His Excellency Joko Widodo. This is an excellent development in a national context, but a person like me would like to suggest for the Indonesians to come up with a global body. Okay, it might be called, we have Islamic Financial Services Board. Okay, and when I was talking to a friend of mine from KNEKS, there was some kind of talk going on to come up with the Islamic Social Finance Services or Islamic Social Financial Services Board, which should be based in Jakarta. Why Indonesia? Indonesia is a very interesting story in Islamic banking and finance. When we look at the Middle Eastern Islamic banking and finance market, this is a very elitist kind of segment of the global industry. Because in Saudi Arabia, in Kuwait, Qatar, and these smaller GCC countries, poverty is not a big issue. Okay, hence these guys, they would not be developing products for poverty alleviation, women empowerment, financial inclusion, etc. Okay, in a country like Indonesia, where wider socioeconomic problems are widespread, okay, hence we see that a lot of institutions, social finance institutions, are already in existence. We have Baitul Mal wa Tamweel, we have rural banks, I'm talking about Islamic, and we have even takaful companies. We have the mainstream banks offering microfinance in a big way, BTP and Sharia. I am aware of them. They play a very important role in the promotion of Islamic microfinance products or financial inclusion products, the products targeting women empowerment, etc. I am giving one example, but there are so many other examples as well. We have the likes of Basnas. Basnas is, although this is a national body, but it's playing a bigger role. It has emerged as a global player or an Indonesian player with global relevance. So a lot of social finance activities are already going on, and there is a need to spread the scope of these activities to other parts of the world as well. And Indonesia can play the lead role in this respect. So this Waqf, and even coming up with a framework to come up with institutions, financial institutions, which should have this, or say social finance Waqf, SFWs. In Malaysia, for example, when I go there, all the companies, they would have SDN.BHD. at the end. Okay, so basically limited companies. So if we can come up with a framework which could distinguish the Waqf companies, Waqf institutions, Waqf entities by way of putting at the end SFW. So this would mean that this is a different kind of business. This is a social business recognized in the law. Okay, and then spreading it all over the world. When we talk about banks, when we say bank muamala, it is a bank. So if there is this SFW at the end, people would understand that this is a different kind of financial / business model. So there is a need, I think, to come up with this kind of new model of practicing Islamic banking or Islamic finance in the world. This would be very new to the world. So far, Islamic banking and finance has been doing what conventional banks and financial institutions have already been doing in a non-Sharia way. So the contribution of Islamic banking and finance is that it has Islamized the banking and finance business, which has relevance in the societies and the economies where Islamic banks and financial institutions are operating. Now there is a need to come up with this new institution. This new institution would have this social objective in mind. So number one objective would be to meet the social objectives. And when we refer to social objectives, of course, implicitly we are saying that these institutions would be not-for-profit. Okay. Banks, okay, they are for-profit organizations, including Islamic banks. Takaful companies, for example, most of them, almost all of them, they are for-profit entities. What I'm referring to is this new model of Islamic finance, which is number one, social-oriented, number two, no profit motive. Okay, and of course, when you have these three things, the business operating model would be completely different as well. And this would change the use of a number of Islamic modes of financing. Okay. For example, murabaha in a banking context is a very different kind of animal. Okay. In most of the countries where Islamic banks use murabaha, they use a very complicated structure. Okay. Banks would not like to be directly involved in trading. There are some examples where banks are actually directly involved in trading, but most Islamic banks, they would like to offer trade financing. Trade financing means what? I need a car, okay? And the bank would, if the bank is using murabaha, the bank would buy the car from a vendor and would sell it to me on profit. And the way this whole thing would work, bank would actually not come into the picture. I might be appointed as an agent for the bank to buy the car on behalf of the bank and then selling it to myself, serving as an agent for the bank and buying it for myself. It's a complicated structure. Now, if we come up with this social finance kind of model of Islamic finance, in that case, this murabaha would be actually the trade murabaha. A lot of social finance, these SFWs, they would be involved in trading. They would have the trading establishments owned by them. So if I would need a car, I would go to this car dealership, which would be owned by an social finance waqf, SFW. Okay, and of course, whatever surplus that waqf would be keeping to itself, that would be not used for any shareholders because there won't be any shareholders, but that money would be used for the benefit of the beneficiaries. Now, in my view, there is a huge amount of money available for this kind of activities. So it's not only when we refer to waqf, of course, okay, we refer to waqf as a body. Okay, within this we can have the sadaqat. Okay, we can even, you know, now cash waqf has become very well known. Okay, this concept was not very well known about 50 years back, for example, but now a lot of banks and other financial institutions, they are practicing cash waqf. So this money coming into the framework in the form of cash waqf, in the form of what I call temporary donations, plus sadaqah, okay, well, the permanent donations. This amount, sadaqat, if the charity is organized by these SFWs in a coherent way, there are a lot of trillions available worldwide. This segment of Islamic finance could be more than $3 trillion if this is organized. If we take a view, for example, on the awqaf properties in the Muslim world, these properties, as of now, they are underdeveloped. But if they are developed, okay, the value, global value of the awqaf properties runs into millions or into trillions. And this is something which the advocates of Islamic finance should be looking into. This is the time for us to start looking into developing a new model, which should be more authentic, which should be more relevant, and of course, this should have a better value proposition for the economies and the societies in the world. Okay, so I think this is absolutely important for Islamic finance to come up with something similar to this one to keep itself relevant to the needs of the people in the post-COVID era. Now, you can stop me whenever my time is over, so I'm going to continue. In the post-COVID era, income disparities are going to take a very different kind of shape. Till the 2019, the global institutions like World Bank and IMF as well, United Nations and other multilateral institutions, regional development banks like Asian Development Bank, African Development Bank, and of course our own Islamic Development Bank has been involved in poverty eradication. Now, poverty eradication, the reference has always been to this base level poverty, okay, absolute poverty. At the same time, there has been an emphasis on relative poverty as well, i.e. reducing income disparities. COVID-19 is definitely going to accentuate income disparities in the world, which means the relative poverty is going to increase. And of course, there are some indications that the levels of absolute poverty in a number of countries is going to rise as well. During the crisis, people's income levels have gone down, and some people would say that this is temporary. Even if it's temporary, this will take time for a number of individuals, families, and the communities to go back to the pre-COVID income levels. And this means that the income disparities would be a lot more as compared to the previous era. And Islamic financial institutions would have to play a role. Okay. There are some indications that the existing Islamic financial institutions, they have started looking into the possibilities of using certain tools. And I must commend the role of Islamic Development Bank in this context. They have rolled out a new Sukuk program, which would raise a lot of money. It has raised already a lot of money. Okay, it has actually come up with it issued the largest green Sukuk issued by a multilateral institution. And this is not going to be just one-off. There is this huge program every now and then. Whenever there is a need, Islamic Development Bank has this intention of raising more money to be used for meeting the requirements of Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, okay, which is very consistent with what is going to happen in the context of COVID-19 as well. The governments, they have come up with their own COVID response programs. Okay, in Indonesia, there has been movements in this respect, neighboring Malaysia as well. And so many other countries, the national governments have come up with their own COVID response strategies and programs. When I look at, apart from Islamic Development Bank, okay, when I look at the Islamic banking and finance industry, we find that there are very small kind of initiatives and activities taking place in this respect. And one should not expect that these Islamic banks would come up with COVID response related products. No, they are profit-oriented institutions, and they would continue the way their conventional counterparts would be doing the business in the market. So then this new kind of institution, which I have mentioned, that has a very important role to play. Now, also, I think for the mainstream, so this is the new kind of thing I have mentioned. The existing Islamic banks and financial institutions, they would have to respond to the changes in the economic reality in an adequate fashion as well. I believe that COVID has changed our lives irreversibly in many respects. From now on, there would be a lot more emphasis on virtual reality. Okay. And me and you guys would be required to come up with your virtual reality as well. What do we mean by that? Basically, if this is my physical profile And in some cases, youngsters, okay, they come up with a Facebook account, a Twitter account, another social media account, which is a fake one. This is me, Humayon Dar, and I might have a Facebook account in the name of someone else. Maybe if I'm naughty, I might be pretending to be a woman. Okay. In future, however, this dichotomy of physical profile and virtual profile would not be possible, because whatever I do physically, privately, this is going to be recorded. It has already started. Okay. This is going to be recorded virtually, and more importantly, this is going to be exhibited virtually as well. So whatever my hand would be doing privately, this would be known socially as well. This means, Professor, we have to be very, very responsible from now on. Okay. And Islamic banks and financial institutions, they must take into account these developments in what we call artificial intelligence and new versions of this one. So we call it AI. Maybe okay, there would be something more advanced than this one.
Excuse me, Professor, I'm sorry to interrupt. Yes, your time is up.
Right. So just let me, in 50 seconds, let me wrap up. Okay.
Yes.
So Islamic banks and financial institutions, okay, they would have to accept this new reality. Okay. And of course, okay, all of us as individuals, we will have no option but to accept it. Okay. And given this new normal we have been talking about, okay, last 18 months, we were talking about this new normal. That new normal has started emerging, which has its advantages and it has disadvantages as well. Islamic banks and financial institutions, they would have to assess these advantages and disadvantages and change themselves accordingly. So there will be a kind of internal reform within Islamic banks and financial institutions. In addition to that, there is a need to come up with a new model of Islamic financial intermediation around the concept of waqf. So for me, waqf should play a more prominent role in the post-COVID-19 era. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much, Professor Humayon, for sharing your thoughts in such tremendous way. All right, now we're about to moving on to the next sessions with Professor Dr. Murniati Mukhlisin as the Rector of Tazkia Islamic University College. But before that, I would like to introduce all of you. Well, for surely maybe some of you already know about her, but I think it's still necessary to introduce you, okay? So, okay, Madam Annie.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
How
are you, Iqom? How are you, Prof. Humayon Dar? I've been actually enjoying your talk. I did not know that Iqom should actually limit your time. So sorry for that. But you know, you, as usual, you're always inspiring, and you have lots to talk, to share. And as what the GIFR book, the thickness of the GIFR books, this is about everything you would like to share with us. So I think we should have a regular meeting with you, Prof. Humayon Dar, and special class for you, because we have international program under Miss Anita. And like Iqom is our student, and I'm sure they're very delighted if you could actually spare your precious time every week, like an hour. So inshallah, if you are happy with that, we could have some arrangement, inshallah. So you will become our guest professor.
Very much. We're only happy to do so.
Inshallah. So Iqom, should I just continue?
I think I should probably maybe give a little bit, maybe just short introductions about it to the audience.
Yes, yes.
All right, so Madam Annie has started her career as a lecturer in Islamic accounting and finance in 2002. and she is currently Islamic accounting certified. She became affiliate staff at University of Glasgow after completing her PhD in 2014, and then joined Assoc's Business School, University of Essex, Colchester, United Kingdom, from 2015 to 2017. She sits on editorial advisory board for an Emerald Journal of Islamic Accounting and Business Research in United Kingdom, Journal of Muamalah and Islamic Finance Research in Malaysia, and Turkish Journal of Islamic Economics. For research, Madam Annie works on critical perspective of research in the areas of financial reporting, Islamic accounting, Islamic banking and finance, and Islamic financial literacy. Madam Annie is currently a rector. As I've mentioned before, she's the rector of Tazkia of Islamic University College in Bogor, Indonesia. She is a team head for Islamic Accounting Compartment, Indonesian's Institute of Accountants, and a consultant for Bank Indonesia, Financial Services Authority, National Islamic Economics and Finance Committee, and she is also appointed as a Sharia expert at BRI Corporate University, expert member of Indonesian's Associations of Islamic Economics, board member of Indonesian's Economist Associations, and advisor to Associations of Islamic Financial Technology Indonesia. Now, we are very pleased to have Madam Annie.
Yes, thank you, Iqom.
Yes.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Rabbi syuri sadri wa yassirli amri wahlul min lisani yafqahu qawli. Everyone, again, assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, we have an opportunity together with Prof. Dar. He is all the way from Islamabad to visit our Zoom and attend to us. And inshallah, there will be some questions for him. And Islamabad, of course, is a country that we both, Miss Anita and I, visited. And at that time, we were really delighted because we were invited by Islamic Development Bank to present our papers. And it's a marvelous country, and mashallah, they have several highways that I like. Islamabad Highway, 9th Avenue Highway, and Kashmir Highway. They are very beautifully designed. So if you go to Islamabad, you can choose the Islamabad International Airport. And when you arrive, you can go around through the highways before reaching your hotel. So Prof. Dar, I know that you are not in the UK because you have the ceiling fan behind you. I could actually see it just now. So definitely you are not in the UK because people in the UK do not use a ceiling fan, because it's already too cold. All right, so I would like to just share with you a few slides that might be helpful for our discussion today. And of course, I have to thank my research assistants, Miss Reza Jamila, who has helped me with the slides and the research. And of course, we could actually have seen this. We have seen, might be, some of us have seen some of the slides, and to show us how the impact of the COVID-19 to Islamic economy. And as you can see, that there are several points that the food industry are affected, the travel, financial services, media and recreation, cosmetics, market creations, and pharmacy. But then you can see as well, there are some potential and are still maintained in the area of the somehow in the industry, that they are not really totally collapsed, but there's some other things are actually growing. So as for instance, in food security, and also the e-commerce delivery, etc., is what Prof. Dar said just now. We can see that they are getting opportunity to grow more during the COVID-19. Of course, when you say dining out, even today, again, Bogor Municipal City had some restrictions imposed to some restaurants and also some gatherings in the city due to 19 cases. And and you get look at this modest fashion or Muslim fashion. There are some actually transaction, which is online transactions for sure, is actually increasing during the COVID. But stoppery is quite lacking, and sorry to say that is actually dropping some productivity. And of course, when the demand is high, especially during the festival Idul Fitri, you can see that some of the products actually increase the price due to the shortage of the raw materials. But what I am wondering is, I'm quite surprised. Okay, here cosmetics, skincare shows better in this case. Although in the research, in Indonesian's research, recently shows that the cosmetic sales did not really improve during the pandemic. So do you agree with this research that the skincare actually improved during the pandemic in terms of cosmetics? And there's a clean beauty products, beauty influencers, online streaming of new launches. Do you think is a research? This research is valid? So we'll have that discussion later. So before I proceed, I would like to thanks Brother Delial Khairat, who has actually put this discussion today online through his YouTube, Brother Delil Khairat. So thank you again. And of course, you can have that if you missed the first sessions, you can see in his YouTube, right? So again, the skincare, we talk about it later. I'll have kind of quite funny fact, but we'll discuss that later. Okay, in terms of Islamic finance, of course, people expected that is to be very low, but then in terms of Indonesian's case, recently the managing director of or executive director of Bank Syariah Indonesia announced that there were some increase during 2020 performance. So we'll see further. I'm sure Prof Dar with his GFR 2021 has covered lots of facts from various countries. And Prof Dar, as for your information, our students in Indonesia have been actually referring to your GFRs a lot. How do I know? I know from their thesis, and I read their references. They quote GFR. So again, thank you, Prof Dar, with your initiative for your GIFR, and I hope that we continue enjoying the research that your team has actually done so far, and lots of things that you have done for the sake of the academia research, academic research, etc. So thank you again, Prof. Dar. So this one actually from other report, yeah, you can see that they said it's about the banking and takaful sectors has been spurred by the weak economy. So you can see that there are some correction here and there, yeah, but there are also revenue development. This regarding the aid package, etc., especially from Islamic development, who is very concerned about his member countries, about 54 member countries so far. And also there are some other banks, Islamic banks, that have actually issued sukuk, etc., that has been very phenomenal during the pandemic. So in terms of social impact development, so we can see that some initiatives, investment and initiative aligned with ESG factors, and also more green sukuk, new Islamic finance initiative, like what has been mentioned by Prof. Dar, Awqaf, etc., and also the SDGs issues. And yesterday, I just had a discussions with the UNDP that is trying to involve more academics to to achieve SDGs, 17 SDGs goals. So the Islamic microfinance as well, as you can see that from the other countries as well, and like Senegal announced the opening of the first Islamic microfinance windows. And of course, in Indonesia, we have around 5,000 BMTs as Baitul Mal wa Tamwil, as what Prof. Dar said. And today, during the pandemic, they are quite vulnerable, Prof. Dar, because the limitations of technology they adopt before. So that's why they're trying to engage with the fintech companies, how to collaborate in a sense that the technological sites that the fintech companies has and the BMT sites that already have a huge number of members. And what is the world post COVID-19? So this is what some analysis, the potential losers, and how the Islamic finance sector must change its business focus. Again, as an advisor to Islamic fintech associations of Indonesia, I also have seen this shift where the conventional Islamic banking is trying to engage with a more sophisticated technology, especially its financial technology, and for that, also the Financial Services Authority, we have also our participant from OJK today. So thank you for your participations. And I can see that the OJK has been actually promoting the opportunity for Islamic fintech as well to grow. So and this one actually how the Islamic banks at the moment is trying at the same time to adopt the current technology, and you can see that some Islamic banks have been introduced, like BankNet. So it's internet banking, so internet-based banking. So this is actually has been registered, and then in fact there are some the technological initiative that have been adopted by many Islamic banks. Yeah, so the halal industry sector, this is very important. So because we can see that like tourism's, of course, from the statistic, it shows the most affected industry. As you can see, even there are some creativity or initiative for online tour, but I don't think people enjoyed much about it. But I'm not sure Pakistan, I think Pakistan is still, is it still open freely, Prof. Dar, regarding the tourism to Pakistan today?
That's Pakistan is one of the countries which has decided to remain open. So
remain open, yeah.
Want to travel to Islamabad again, you would be most welcome.
Yeah, I can see that you have been going to and forth to Pakistan and as well Istanbul. Turkey as well has been uphoning their tourism sector since September last year. So we don't really see that like Malaysia is now closing again the country. And I think we can, not only tourism sector in Turkey, but also the education. They already opened the university for offline education. So Indonesia today is still doing online educations, Prof. Dar, and the government is still restricts perhaps until September, but we'll see how's the development. As for Tazkia, Prof. Dar, we have 3 campuses where the main campus, where we have around 2,000 students to go in and out. So the government, the regional, the local government doesn't actually allow us to open the campus as usual, but we have other 2 campuses where we have this dormitory system. So right, where the students actually study and live there 24 hours. So they are not allowed to go in out freely, and they follow the rules and the regulations for a closed campus. So we've been actually conducting that campus for since September. But because these 2 campuses are quite special, they have to memorize Quran, Prof. Dar, for 30 juz of the Quran. So for 4 years, so there's not much time for them not to be in the campus. If they stay at home, they might not really be concerned about their targets to memorize the Quran. So this is actually quite unique, and it's quite new program that Tazkia offered. We started quite for the past 2 years. We had this undergraduate study on Hafizpreneur. So Hafiz Quran at the same time study entrepreneurships.
Right.
Quite interesting. If you one day I would like to introduce you to them because they are quite special students, because they don't actually go to the class and go back again and then stay in the dorm, play football freely. No, they're not like that. They have all time schedules. Everything has been set for them for the whole semesters. So
Right.
and the halal industry, again, there are still potential winners. Agriculture, this is quite happy news. And in fact, the demand for fresh fruits and vegetables and also herbs quite increasing over time. And as people they don't have any ideas of how to overcome COVID, so they go back again to the natural consumptions, which is actually to take more consumptions on the herbals, herbal food, and also the fresh food, etc. So again, we just talk about as well food processing, and now today Indonesia has been promoting the halal certification, Prof. Dar. So as we can see the statistic of the SMEs in Indonesia, there are around 60 million, and 1/3, if not half, are engaged with food industry. So the government is actually trying to help the SMEs to get the halal certifications for their products, so in order to gain more trust from the customers, and also to help our export for halal food. At the moment, Indonesia is ranked number 4 after Malaysia, Singapore, and UAE in terms of halal industry development. So quite ironic, because we actually the biggest consumers in the world that demand halal food, but we cannot produce halal food. So I think this is quite ironic, but the government and everyone is actually hand in hand to work to achieve this better ranking in the future. So this is what I said just now. Quite happy that Indonesia has been ranked in all sectors, unlike in 2019, where almost I think only four sectors that we put in the ranking. But today, in terms of halal food, we increased from none to number 4, and from Islamic finance, from it's quite sad news, from 5th ranking to 6th ranking, and from the friendly travel or halal tourisms, from 4th ranking to 6th ranking, and modest fashion from 3rd ranking, of course, is still maintained in the 3rd ranking, and in terms of pharmacy is actually from none and then increased to number 6, and in terms of media and recreations, from none to number 5. So it's quite news, but again, quite good news. But again, we need to work together. I just would like to expedite because I think we might not have much time. So just to show briefly on Indonesia. Just now I talk about more on global, and of course, Prof. Dar mentioned lots of things even from the previous crisis, economic crisis, and etc. And Prof. Dar mentioned about many things that I would like you to touch from the political point of view. And but before that, I would like to show you the global sukuk issuance that has been quiet in many other countries, and also followed by Indonesia. And Indonesia, in fact, in terms of the global sukuk, is the highest so far for 2023 for issuance in terms of issuance. So the government sukuk itself, we have 2 retail sukuk and 1 saving and cash wakaf link sukuk, which was launched personally by the Indonesian presidents and the vice presidents. And in terms of the green sukuk, this is quite interesting as well, because all over the world are very concerned on green sukuk and bond emissions, and also Islamic stocks quite increasing over the time. So we have so far 426 Islamic stocks, which is actually 60% from the total stocks available. So the Islamic stock investors increased 1,650% during 2016 to 2020. It's quite aware that the financial literacy has been very what we call the financial literacy is actually has been increased over time. So inshallah, and then we can see the global investment trend, the responsible economy or green economy. As you can see, the sukuk has been actually quite demanding over time. And just to be quick, for the green sukuk, this is again just to show some statistic, and this is actually what I did quite little, very little publications on zero waste accounting, because my specification is on Islamic accounting. So I'm very concerned also on zero waste and green economy, green accounting. So this is what I found, and my suggestions to Islamic financial institutions to adopt this kind of zero waste accounting. And you can see that the waste problem in Indonesia is huge. And the waste management is quite poor at the moment. And in fact, I'm quite happy actually. The surrounding the campus, we have been introduced with the called zero waste management by the housing complex there where Tazkia campus is located. But after the pandemic, it stopped. So quite Prof has been living in the UK for many years, and even I just stayed there for 6 years. I could actually see how the waste management in the UK could be a very good example. All right. So what is political synergy we need? So we have potential. We always say that. We have potential on zakah, we have potential on social finance, commercial finance, but there are many issues behind the institutions that Prof. Dar also mentions, IOFI, FSB, etc. So in my research, I found that there is not good synergy between one institution to another institution that has a huge impact on the development of Islamic finance. So we call them International Islamic Financial Architecture. So this is my diagram that I actually draw on how Islamic financial institutions could actually grow better, especially in Indonesia, could grow better if the Islamic financial institutions work together, like in some other institution, like FSB, IOFI, and then also the zakah impact Awqaf institutions, and also the what we call the Islamic Banking Association, etc., and how they actually could go together. But then what I found in my research is they are very competing each other and they have different logic. Yeah, we understand that religion logic could be number one, but in reality, the economic system has been still influenced by neoliberalisms and Islamic system, how actually they could compete each other. One actually cares about the sharing economy, and the other one is actually cares about certain group economy. So this is something that we need to talk about, to be aware that we are all an Islamic financial institutions. So we are all Islamic financial academics. We are all Islamic financial practitioners, but we should actually be aware with the political impact and political strategy that have been set by that might not go anywhere for the Islamic financial institution to contribute. So when we talk about Islamic social finance, we talk about Islamic commercial finance. For who is the benefit? So this is actually why the political synergy and also the political talks on Islamic finance have to be pushed again, and everyone like Islamic financial institutions, researchers, also Islamic finance academics have to take very high concerns on the political issues. What are going on? Who actually benefit the sukuk issuance, and who actually benefit the outcome, etc. We have to be very critical on that. And this is the example of just my small research, and you could actually do not Islamic financial institutions. Let's say you put Islamic social finance institutions, so that we can see that what are the institutions that support Islamic social finance to grow, and to support the Awqaf institutions to grow, Zakat institution to grow, so we could actually see what are the factors to influence. Right? So that's all from me, Econ, and the audience. Thank you so much for being so patient with me, and I'm sure we have a limited time, but I would like to take the remaining time for discussion, especially for Prof. Dar, because he's not always with us. Like me, you can find me anytime in the campus. So thank you so very much, and I'll see you again in some other time. I'll be here, and please post any questions. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much, Madam Ani, for the great presentations. Now, moving right along to the questions and answer sessions. If I'm not mistaken, I just saw someone raising a hand. Mr. Didin J, if I'm not mistaken.
No, thanks. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. All right. I feel like I need to remind you again. If you have any questions, please don't be hesitate. Just type it down in the comment box below. Or maybe you can raise your hand so you can unmute your mic so that you can give your questions directly to our speakers. All right, we have one. Okay, is it Miss Delil? Oh, sorry, Mr. Delil Khairat?
Yes, he's a Pak actually.
Pak Dalil, Pak Dalil, yeah.
Mr. Sorry.
So, yeah, Dr. Dalil Khairat.
Not yet, thank you, Kak Ani.
All right. But he's already professor in Islamic insurance. Brother, I would like to introduce to you, Brother Dalil Khairat is a good friend of mine. He's been very active in promoting Islamic financial talks in his YouTube. Although he is quite busy in Swiss insurance companies in Malaysia,
Yes.
in Kuala Lumpur. So yes, I give you time for question or comments.
Thank you, Kak Ani, for very generous introduction. Prof. Dar, we met like 5 years ago in Jakarta. If you remember, you may not remember, in OJK International Conference. I think we were both in the same panel that time in Jakarta. I'm really enjoying your talk this afternoon. Really fantastic. And it gives me some more energy actually, Prof. Dar, because I'm professional in Rita Kaful actually, working with Swiss Re Rita Kaful based in Kuala Lumpur. But Indonesia is one of my main market, and I think I lost the connection. Can you hear me, guys?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. So I always get question from friends in Indonesia asking me to give them some example about the innovation from other countries, and I always answer them, look, Indonesia have more things to do with innovation. Let's come up with something new for the world from Indonesia. Although I'm not sure, I don't have any concrete idea what's all about. But I think I believe that Indonesia should have more to offer to the world. So your idea just now that we need to come up with some new breed of institution under Islamic finance, you bring about Wakaf, really give me some more energy about the social finance as well. But I have some skepticism actually, Prof. Da, because in Indonesia, I'm not sure in the other part of the world, but I think social finance, anything to do with more social indeed, not really getting support.
This is a
Recording in
government body
progress.
which is already recognized. Okay, and this is a body which can play a very important role for further developments in the Waqf domain. And it is already playing an important role as well. You know, this cash Waqf linked sukuk, for example, you know, they were involved in that one as well.
I'm actually back. If I can finish my question, Prof. Da.
All right, okay.
Okay, good. Okay, so sorry, I was just kicked out. Not sure what happened. So my question is that specifically in in Indonesia, anything to do with the social finance is not really getting full support, including from government, I would say. And in my industry, for example, mutual insurance, for example, has been neglected, I would say. I mean, we do not have really clear regulation on the mutual insurance, which is very close to takaful Islamic finance, and we only have one a dying mutual insurer in Indonesia at the moment by the name of Bumi Putra, and it has been struggling all the way actually, and also in the past, maybe like 20 years ago, cooperatives used to be very famous. Secured a lot of support from governments, but not anymore. So it's looked like government also very much lean toward more commercial minded rather than social. So my question is that how should we go about this? How can we work on this environment to promote what you call as a new breed of the business under Islamic finance? That would be my specific question, Prof. Dar. Thank you.
May I answer this question?
Yes, you may address this question
Time is
first, and
yours,
then you
Prof.
can go
Dar.
back to the
I'm
previous
your just
question.
assistant. You're your assistant. If I think I need to answer, I will. Otherwise, it's all yours.
Very much. You're very kind. You are absolutely right. You know, the national and international environment is not in favor of the mutual organizations or cooperatives all over the world. Mutual organizations and cooperatives, they have seen their downfall. Not because they have been inefficient, but it's because of the change in the government preferences towards it. I will give you example from my own country, United Kingdom. When I went there in 1991 to demutualize a lot of businesses. We sector, okay, was for home financing. But the conservative government of John Major at that time in 1992 came up with this provision. Rather, it wasn't just a provision, it was a strong recommendation that the building societies of significant size, they should convert themselves into a number of building societies, they actually became banks. Alliance and Leicester, for example, was one example, which was a big building society which became a bank, and now it was overtaken by Santander Bank. So Alliance and Leicester as a building society doesn't exist now. This is a big bank. Okay. On the other hand side, there are decided, and it's a very good niche institution in operation. In case of Islamic finance, we have to take the ownership of this mutual model. When the other organizations, in the corporate sector, demutualization is taking place, for Islamic financial institutions to look different from their conventional counterparts, this is an opportunity for them to emphasize that we would like to follow this model. Unfortunately, Islamic finance industry has followed the trend, what is happening in the conventional domain. And whatever innovation we talk about, that innovation takes place there. Okay. Otherwise, there are so many good examples of success. I keep on giving the example of Islamic Relief worldwide. Islamic Relief started as a charity in the United Kingdom. It is still a very vibrant charity, actually the #1 Islamic charity in the United Kingdom, with the international presence in about 30, 40 countries. And it is not just a charity now, it owns a lot of financial intermediaries. This is playing a very important role in the promotion of Islamic microfinance in the countries where it is operating. And in terms of its size, it's growing. Right? I keep on giving this example that if you are trustworthy and you specialize in this sector, you would attract a lot of money. Unfortunately, in a lot of cases, we look at the government to support. And if there is no government support, then we would not like to take an initiative. I believe that in the post-COVID era, if certain institutions and individuals and stakeholders, if they get together and come up with a working model of Waqf, right, the governments would then start supporting them. I'm aware of some small Waqf kind of initiatives taking place in Malaysia. I will give example of Waqf An-Noor, for example, okay, which is involved in, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
All right. So Waqf An-Noor, for example,
Man.
I would
Recording
say that
in progress.
given that there is this entity is already there, which is very cozy with the government, if these guys, they take an initiative, I believe that they can break the inertia. That's it for me. Yeah.
We have one more questions from Miss Mutia Mustafa. Okay. Professor Da, if we have to focus on more social justice institutions, which is non-profit, but for a private institutions, they might think that they need private to grow and scale up. So how we should address such
For
point
the
of view?
private, afterwards,
But for a private institutions, they might think that they need private to grow and scale up. So how we should address such a point of view?
Right. I think this is a very interesting question. However, I can give you examples, at least one example of success from the country right now I'm sitting in. Okay. In Pakistan, there is one organization called Akhuwat. Okay, this which is a not-for-profit organization specializing in micro loans. Interest-free microfinancing. So they offer completely interest-free microloans. Okay, the model has become so successful. So they don't use murabaha, musharaka, mudarba, or whatever. So whosoever goes to them and is looking for a loan of say 50,000 rupees, they would give them 50,000 rupees and receive 50,000 rupees back. No interest involved. Now this has become a very popular model given its social benefits. And now I can tell you the federal government in Pakistan, 3 provincial governments in Pakistan, they have started outsourcing their social subsidy program and social housing program to them. Okay. And a number of banks, the largest bank is called HBL, for example, HBL, MCB, and so many other banks. They have entered into contracts with this organization to roll out their social housing products and platforms. So you have to come up with an example of success. Once that example becomes recognized, it becomes very big as well. Okay, so this Akhuwat, they claim that they are the largest interest-free microcredit program in the world. So with this initial success, the scale has come as well. And I can tell you what is their business model. It's all cost efficiency. Right? When, say, if government wants to roll out a social program, and if the cost of distributing $1, these guys, Akhuwat guys, they would say that we would do the same thing in 11 cents, right? So because of this cost efficiency, they are gaining a lot of attraction, a lot of new businesses coming in, which is helping them to grow as well. And they have become the largest institution of this type in the country. And of course, they say the business model they are following, they are the #1 in the world as well. So, so important thing is to come up with a model, make it successful. Then in the social sector, social and charitable sector, you start receiving a lot of money. People have this dedication and commitment to contributing to good causes. Okay. And they contribute to these good causes only once they are convinced that their money is being utilized effectively, efficiently, and in a cost-efficient manner.
Thank you so much, Professor. Okay, one last question from Miss Rida Rosida. Okay, thank you for an inspiring talk from Professor Da and Madam Adi.
Miss Rida, you can actually say that questions by yourself, Miss Rida.
Oh yeah, Miss Rida, please, would you be so kind to switch on the mics?
Okay. Nice to meet you. Assalamualaikum, Prof Humayon and also Madam Ani.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, I'm Rida from Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia, Prof, from Bandung. And actually, I'm one of your, I'm alumni of IUI also, Prof, from Islamabad. So I'm really delighted. So I met my senior here. And also I have attended also 10 of your courses from IFAB Cambridge. So alhamdulillah, I met you here. Okay, my one question is that what can educators do in preparing and supporting future human resources who become the future human resources who become the supporters of Islamic finance, especially Islamic social finance? So I would like to hear from you both. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy that I am meeting one of the alumni of IIUI. I have a program called IIIE School of Economics Alumni Interview Series. If you are from the IIIE, I would like to interview you.
Yes, I'm from IIIE, Prof.
Yeah, so I would, if you can get my details, I would like to interview you for my interview series as well. Now, coming to the question, I think human resource development is extremely important. And the institutions like Tazkia Institute and also the International Islamic University model. You know, you went to IIUI, then it was followed by IIUM, and then there was another one called IIUC, International Islamic University, Chittagong. And now we have an International Islamic University in Indonesia. As well, right? And there is another Islamic University in Uganda, but they don't call themselves international. But this is supported by the OIC as well. You know, these universities, they have played a tremendously important role for developing human resources which are relevant to Islamic economic development, okay, and including Islamic banking and finance. When we look at, when we go to any institution, and in Islamic bank or Islamic financial institution in the world, it is likely that we will find a graduate of one of these universities. Okay. You know, I give example of amongst these 4 or 5 IIUs, the most successful is IIUM. Okay. And Professor Murniati was telling me the other day that, you know, almost half of their faculty members, okay, they have something to do with the IIUM, right? And this is not just the
Miss Anita, who invited you is IIUM alumni.
That's right. So look at, you know, what role institutions are playing. When I go to and in case of IIUM, you know, you look at the previous governor, Tansiri Muhammad Ibrahim. He was an alumnus of IIUM as well. I was recently in Kabul, and they had 2 recent governors of the central bank from IIUI. Okay, so if these institutions, including Tazkia Institute, if these institutions, if they can come up with programs on Islamic social finance, this would be a step in the right direction to start developing human resources for the Islamic social finance industry. Okay, and Islamic social finance degrees, they should have a component in Islamic entrepreneurship as well, because in a lot of cases, the skills required for working in the social finance sector are relevant to what the entrepreneurs do as well. So I believe first thing is creating awareness, and alhamdulillah, a lot of awareness has already been created. Now, if we have specialized degrees in Islamic social finance and entrepreneurship in these universities and other universities as well, I think this is something which we have been talking about that would become a reality pretty soon. So that's it. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Thank you so much, Prof. Dar.
Thank you so much. Bahut shukriya, Prof.
Bahut shukriya, Prof. Dar.
All right. Thank you very much.
I like Pakistani food. I like the of course the clothes and the shopping.
As I said, okay, Pakistan is open to all the international travels, so you should be taking a visit to the country again.
Inshallah. But I'll be coming for the Jifa Award, inshallah. It will be held in New York, as you said, or somewhere
Actually,
else?
we actually agreed with the government of Afghanistan that this would be held in Kabul. However, as you
All
know,
right.
now after the imminent withdrawal of the US forces, the situation over there is so we are looking into, of course, we would like to give it to President Ashraf Ghani. However, we are looking into some other alternatives as well, holding it in a country which is open to the international travelers.
I was the guest of the President Ashraf Ghani in December 2020, Prof. Dar.
I saw your pictures, okay. You
Yeah.
were the VIP guest.
Yeah, mashallah. But unfortunately, because of I was the VIP guest, I couldn't actually go out from the palace freely, and I didn't manage to do shopping.
Oh, right. That is one of the disadvantages of being
Yes, yes. But Alhamdulillah, we got a very golden opportunity to meet all these officials and including the presidents, and we shared our views on the peace, mashallah, and inshallah we'll be going again. And for your information, we are receiving 5 to 10 international students, in Afghanistan students to Tazkia this year.
excellent. And if they're
Alhamdulillah.
friends, then you should make sure that they get married to Indonesian girls so that your ties with the country, they are stronger.
Oh, mashallah. Yeah, inshallah. Thank you, Prof. Dar, again for your motivation. And of course, we'd like to meet you in person. But again, the COVID-19 cases are increasing this week. And in fact, they are closing for, the masjid are closing for Salatul Jumu'ah starting this Friday until 5th of July.
Oh, right. No, we are planning to launch our global Islamic Finance Report 2021 in Jakarta during this Sharia Economic Festival.
Yeah, this I've heard about it. But do you think it's quite late in 2021? Sorry, 2021 in November. They are going to take place in November
In
or October?
October.
October. So inshallah, yeah, we are waiting for that 21 release. Inshallah, it's going to be very beneficial to many. Okay, Iqom, I think we are approaching to Maghrib, and what time is it now in Pakistan, in Islamabad?
This is now 3:40 p.m. 3:40 p.m.
Yeah, we are approaching Maghrib time now. So,
All right.
yeah, Iqom, just.
All right. It seems like we have covered all of our questions here. Yeah, I think we can just go straight to the photo sections now for closing. Yes. May I ask all of the audience to turn on the cam?
Miss Anita, perhaps you would like to say a few words for conclusion?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, thank you, Prof, for coming to our webinar. It's been 2 months. We are preparing for today, and I hope that this webinar will not be the last, but we'll have another session with you, inshallah, with webinars or with classes with our international class students. And I think today's session, if we can wrap up on what is the conclusions of how the Islamic finance can do or contribute after COVID-19 pandemic, as we can hear from Prof. Humayon, we need more integration between Islamic social finance and the Islamic commercial finance. And I think in the future, even though the pandemic is not over yet, we can start doing this integrations between both. So once the pandemic is over, inshallah, Islamic finance, both commercial and social, we can contribute more and more, and it is no longer will be seen as the same with the conventional one, but someday we can be seen as unique, and we can be seen as the only solutions for the current or the contemporary finance in the future, inshallah. So thank you once again, Prof. Humayon, and Associate Professor Dr. Murniati Mukhlisin. Inshallah, we will meet you again in another
program in another session. So everyone, please turn on your camera. Please make sure that you are in the picture with Prof. Humayon and with Associate Professor Dr. Murniati Mukhlisin. Don't miss this opportunity. Yes, Iqom, that's from me.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation.
You're welcome, Prof.
We have to thank you, Prof. Dar, for sparing your
Yes.
time with us today.
It's us who should say thank you, actually. Okay, could we please change the spotlight, please, the committee? Okay, we will change into the gallery view. Okay, everyone, make sure you are in the picture with Prof. Humayon and
Barida, what's your son's name again? Smile.
It's Ashraf Rashid, ma'am.
Yeah, Alhamdulillah. Mbak Isti, thank you for coming. Nurizal and Tisha, is it Tisha? Wow, complete with the team, with the football team. Noi, Ustad Rushdie, smile.
okay. If you need instructions, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, next page. 1, 2, 3, smile.
Mbak Elisa Kurniati, how are you?
Okay, next page. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay.
Ustad Habibullah, are you there? Masya Allah. There are
Yes,
some
madam.
from Islamic banks here, Prof. Dar. Ustad Habibullah is from Permata Bank Syariah.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure meeting you.
Yes, it's my pleasure also, Prof. Dar.
Ustad Habib, you spotted on, Masya Allah. I have not been speaking with you for many months, I think.
Yes. I think next month, I think we will have the event together with you, madam.
Oh, Masya Allah, Insya Allah.
Thank you.
Thank
you so
you,
much.
Prof. Habib, Dr. Ustad Habib, and salam to everyone in Permata Bank, Insya Allah.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Siska, Mbak Siska, Mbak Aisyah. Okay, thank you everyone. Iqom, thank you so very much for being with us again. I'm sure you still have more jobs to do because the international program will have more programs that need you. So inshallah, meet you again, inshallah.
I look forward to that. Okay. Miss
Khalil,
Anita, are we
I'll see you
done with
again
the
in our
further session?
program.
All right.
All right.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Salam.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone. I should leave the
Sure.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam
Salam to your
warahmatullahi
families
wabarakatuh.
everyone.